DW Africa Link.
Those are sounds of people scurrying to put out a fire in Malawi. Wildfire outbreaks, particularly wildfires and agricultural burning, may be common occurrences in some parts of the country. What is not common is repeated fire outbreaks in schools. In a space of 1 month, 5 of these incidents have been reported across Malawi's senior high schools. Why is this happening?
This comes in a place where maybe at one point the students tried to talk the thing out to the teachers or maybe to the administration, and then there was nothing that was done. There was no action that was taken by the administration to address the problem. So students feel like if they vandalize or if they destroy the school property, it will force school administration to take action.
Does vandalism address grievances, or could there be other possible causes of Malawi's school fires? And how can they be addressed? That's what's coming up. Stay tuned. I'm Adwoa Tenkorama Domena, and you're welcome to Africa Link, the podcast that connects you to the stories that matter.
Africa Link, every weekday here on DW.
In the past month, Malawi has recorded at least 5 fire outbreaks across several senior high schools. In some of the schools, students are reportedly setting buildings ablaze in protest of mobile phone seizures. In other schools, dormitories are being torched in protest of poor food and water scarcity. The government has labeled these reasons as petty disagreements, but are they really petty? Students are being arrested, with some at risk of facing prosecution. So today we are delving deeper into this situation. Why is it spiraling? What could even be going wrong? And how can it be addressed? And for that, I'm joined by Benedicto Kondowe. He is an education activist and executive director of the Civil Society Education Coalition, CSEC. Welcome to the show, Benedicto.
Thank you very much for having me in your program.
Great. We also have Chimwemwe Padatha. He is our man on the ground in Malawi. Welcome, Chimwemwe.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Brilliant. So let me begin with you, Chimwemwe. You are a reporter on the ground. What exactly is happening in Malawi?
I would first of all say that the banning of schools has not only affected public schools, it is a trend that is been affecting both public and private schools for the past months. And since the beginning of this year, it has also hit these private-run institutions. At the moment, parents are concerned that the growing trend of fires, which are mostly caused by learners or students in these schools, when they have grievances with school authorities such as their teachers, they are striking against poor diets in schools, and some are saying that they are being kept for a long time in school, citing a recent incident that happened last month where a school was raised down because the school authorities have they have changed their holidays from the 19th of December to the 21st of December. So you would look at these grievances, they are considered, I would say, petty, and they are still finding ways on how to put this to rest.
Between September and now we are speaking in December, we've had 10 incidents. Are these not normal?
Yes, I would say the incidents are not normal because the students are deliberately torching their facilities. You talk of their classrooms, you talk of the head teachers' offices, you talk of the dorm amenities. So the incidents are not normal because the students are going on rampage, burning their own facilities at school.
Can you take us through the chronology of events and what has happened to those incidents? In some cases, we have learned that some of the students have been arrested. What is happening in those schools?
Yes, that's true. A majority of these incidents are related to wrangles that erupt between the students and the school authorities. Like I mentioned, where students complain of poor diets, so they end up touching their school facilities. But one incident that happened last week, where a girls' boarding school, some facilities were touched because the school authorities had changed the closing date of the school from the 19th of December to the 21st of December. So you would see that the reasons of these fires are really petty, if I may say. And 21 learners of this school have since been arrested. So authorities are now taking action. It is not only these school authorities. We are now talking of law enforcement agencies, the police, the 21 students that have been arrested. So it is an issue affecting quite a number of sectors, not only the education sector. Now it is tackling the police officers, the law enforcement agencies. So it is a broad issue.
Very well. Thank you very much for that comprehensive breakdown. Now, let me bring you in, Benedicto. Now you have the full grasp of exactly what is happening. Would you agree with the education minister, who at some point has said that these reasons given by the students, for which reasons they are vandalizing school properties, are petty?
I would not 100% agree with that view, because the question then would be, from whose perspective are those reasons petty? But I may proceed by saying that there are three key factors that have led to increased cases of school vandalism, including the issue of torching of school facilities. The first factor is a general discipline moral decay among the students, in that there is misconception that human rights is about them doing whatever they want. And it's more about the right to do ABCD. So the question of a discipline moral decay is quite fundamental. And there's another factor here, which is equally important, is the issue of abdication of parental responsibility. So once the students are coming from their home, from our homes and communities, most parents have given off the responsibility to inculcate right discipline among their children in the hands of the teachers. Yet, these students spend more of their times in the homes. And because of that, there is a huge gap, simply because parents have abdicated their parental responsibility in making sure that they nurture disciplined children. The third factor, which is very, very important in this discussion, is the non-inclusive school leadership. So remember, most of the head teachers under the human rights discourse ought to appreciate that the students have the right to participate. And this has been a major issue, that for those that are rooted in tradition, they don't involve the students in the decision making, even if it means merely listening to their concerns. They don't, because they believe that decisions have to be made by the school authority, and that the students have to follow whatever instruction you give them. And this is creating a very big disconnect in the context of human rights discourse. And I think increasingly, if you carefully listen to what Chimwemwe was sharing with us, and that's the perspective that the students are giving, that they are not consulted, the school management does not listen, is because there are no avenues, grievance mechanism avenues, including making sure that the students are consulted on major decisions that the schools are making.
Right. Benedicto, will come to solutions that you would suggest. But I want to understand, for all the reasons you have given, which are incredibly informative, You're speaking about moral decay. You're speaking about, non-inclusive school leadership and also adjudication of parental responsibility. But the rationale that is being attributed to the end result, which is a fire outbreak, are they justifiable?
In my view, they are not. Absolutely, they are not. And as an advocate, I've spent a great deal of my time talking about these issues. Because my own view is that schools must facilitate grievance mechanism. They must engage. But the students too must realize that some of their concerns cannot be met. And therefore, it is not just a question of us needing this and that has to be provided. If you talk about food issues, not everything that they may demand may be provided within the very challenging economic situation. So there has to be dialogue, there has to be constructive engagement, and there has to be that sense of listening to each other. But by the end of the day, the students must always appreciate the fact that when these school vandalism arises, or indeed there is a torching of school infrastructure, who loses? It's actually they themselves, they lose, but most importantly, my pain is on innocent victims who are subjected to psychology. They may not be part and parcel of whatever is happening, but by the end of the day, they're affected. There is also the issue of cost here. Cost in terms of time spent to be educated, especially if you have prolonged closure. So I think these issues must be understood in a very broad context.
Thank you so much for the context you have given us, and I think it will help us very much in proceeding with this discourse. Chimwemwe, let me come back to you. The students themselves and parents, how have they been reacting to these incidents and the potential ramifications they carry?
I try to interact with several parents as well as these students, and the parents are growing frustrated. Some of these learners are also growing frustrated because this malpractice is not involving everyone. So hearing from the parents, some are blaming the school authorities for a decline in ethical standards. But also I managed to interact with the students themselves. Some at the moment are living in fear because it is not everyone involved in this malpractice. And trying to talk to them, trying to interact with these students, from what I established, I noticed that many are living in fear because, these incidents, many of them are happening at night, schools being torched at night. And this year alone, some schools have been attacked twice. So it is really a sad situation. What keeps coming out from these students is failure by their authorities to take up their issues. One thing that was mentioned by Benedicto was that we need to come up with proper mechanisms on how to iron out these issues. So the students themselves also feel the same way. They feel that they are being left out in coming up with solutions on how to run their schools. Talking about the diets that was also mentioned earlier, one of the contributing factors of the fires in the schools. The students need to be engaged. They feel left out, as well as the parents themselves also feel left out. They are also pointing at issues of failure to uphold proper standards in schools, putting up ways on how to discipline these learners, talking about penalties when the students are on the...
Hang on that thought for us. I want us to stay a bit longer on the welfare conditions. You have visited some of the schools. Is that something that is prevalent in these schools?
I would say the living conditions of learners in schools have a lot to be desired because public schools cannot be compared with private institutions. You find that the standards are really low in these public schools, while in private institutions, you find that the learners are living a comfortable life. So when these learners in public schools go to see what their colleagues are experiencing in private institutions, you see that they have something in mind that why are we not experiencing this kind of a life? So yeah, it's really something which is bold. I would say it boldly that the living conditions in public institutions leave a lot to be desired, but private institutions are really trying their best.
But we have also said in this discussion that private schools are increasingly also becoming part of these fire incidents. What is the correlation now?
I would also point to failure to uphold moral principles by learners in private schools, because the teachers seem to be relaxed in imposing stiffer punishments. We are not talking about corporal punishment, because we have also experienced some pockets of corporal punishment in the past. So there should be a proper way, because the owners of the independent schools, through their association, the Independent Schools Association of Malawi, recently issued a statement where they are condemning this malpractice, but they are proposing stiffer penalties on how best to handle this situation. So it's an issue concerning different players, the independent association, the parents themselves, and the teachers.
In terms of the government, you've mentioned every other stakeholder apart from them. What have they been saying about the situation?
Recently, the Minister of Education, Brighton Saka, raised this issue in Parliament. He did say that investigations are underway on this issue, but also he condemned these tendencies, citing that vandalism or burning of school property is retrogressive here in Malawi, as it is also coming at a time when the ministry is struggling to improve the education sector, pumping a lot of resources, talking about funds in the Ministry of Education, getting a lion's share, making sure that education standards are improved. So we are hoping that the ministry will take drastic measures to put this to rest. But what I can say is that what has come out from the ministry are investigations and condemning this tendency that keeps coming out from these schools.
Right. Benedicto, in terms of government action, where do you think they should be focusing on to tackle this problem that we are having?
2 points are important. Number one is that the government needs to strengthen school leadership and management to make sure that school management are conscious of the human rights, and they need to engage students on decisions that affect them. And I think this is particularly important because our constitution espouses that in any decision that affects children, the best interest of the children must be promoted. So I think this is why the school leadership must be strengthened in terms of understanding the human rights discourse. But that said, there must also be meaningful dialogue and engagement between the schools and the communities. In the context of Malawi, we have structures, school governance structures, such as Parent-Teachers Association, school management committees. In the case of secondary schools, you have the Board of Governors. These structures must be strengthened so that there's regular engagement and support to deal with the current crisis. But that said, we must also raise awareness among the students themselves so that they understand their rights and responsibility. And as I earlier on hinted, most of them are not interested in the responsibility. And this is why we need awareness raising so that they also understand the obligations that they have in as far as their right to education is concerned.
Now, if this situation is not tackled any moment from now, what are the dangers Malawi's education system is going to face?
The first danger is that it will create a generation of deviance where vandalism will be institutionalized and normalized, and that would set a very bad precedence. Because in the case of public schools, as would be the case with private, our economy is not good, so replacing infrastructure or assets that are destroyed is a tall order for government that is already is struggling. So I think my own view is that it will push taxpayers deep into their pockets on things that are avoidable. But as I said, there's also psychological trauma here on the parents who care about the safety of their children, and in this case, the students themselves, because when these things happen, there are innocent students. So psychological torture becomes quite significant. Then you're also talking about the surrounding communities where these things are happening. So I think the danger, in my view, is unprecedented.
Thank you so much, Benedicto. Chimwemwe, let me come to you finally. Are there signs, I mean, you've spoken about investigations, but are there signs that you're seeing that, for instance, on the issue of engagement and including students in leadership on campus, are there signs that these things are improving or will improve in the near future?
It would be too early to tell, but we should still wait on the authorities to see how they will implement some of these proposals that are coming out from educationists and other sectors, because the Independent Schools Association of Malawi has also made a certain proposal to the government to introduce legislation in parliament to start imposing stiffer penalties to learners who are found vandalizing schools or damaging school property. So I would say that it goes back to our lawmakers to introduce these laws on how best we can handle this situation, because at the moment I would say that schools only impose lenient punishments like suspension, taking some of the freedoms from these students away as a measure of trying to instill discipline to these learners. So it goes back to our learners, to the government, on how best we can handle this issue, coming up to a round table on how best to iron out these issues together with our educationists, the ministry, and owners of the independent schools.
Right. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Chimwemwe Padatha is our correspondent in Malawi. Benedicto, final comments.
My own view is that looking at the increased number of school vandalism and the burning of school property, we need collective responsibility here, shared responsibility among parents, the students themselves, school leadership, as well as government. But that said, we need to make sure that we impose stiff penalties so that those that are found guilty suffer the consequences of their wrong deeds. And I would want to depart a bit from what Chimwemwe said.
Your 30 seconds is almost up.
Yes.
So please wrap up.
You can still impose these penalties under the penal code. So you don't necessarily need to wait for a specific legislation. The penal code can still be invoked to impose stiff penalties.
Brilliant. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time.
Africa is changing. Don't get left behind. Tune in to Africa Link.
Now, as I always say, your opinions matter the most to us on this show. So we hit the street in Malawi to ask some citizens on what they make of the current happenings and what they think can be done to reduce the incidents, if not avoid them completely.
Students may also involve themselves in vandalism of school property if they feel like the school administration or the teachers don't listen to their concerns. This comes in a place where maybe at one point the students tried to talk the thing out to the teachers or maybe to the administration, and then there was nothing that was done. There was no action that was taken by the administration to address the problem. So students feel like if they vandalize or if they destroy the school property, it will force school administration to take action. So we can best tackle this by providing a platform where students can be able to lay out their concerns to the administration, and the administration should be in a place where they take action on what the students are asking for or on the issue that the students want to be addressed.
So many factors that are attributing to this. Number one has to do with drug and substance abuse. There's been a lot of cases whereby students now, they are taking chamba, some are abusing alcohol, taking cocaine, which is very extreme. And then that causes airline reasoning. As such, students, they'll end up doing something that they couldn't have done if circumstances were okay and normal. They are very lazy and they just want to play around, be on TikTok, be on WhatsApp, and they feel like school is an obstacle. Some lazy students, they will just decide to do such action. There should be stiff penalties. Or whenever a person is found in doing such demonic acts, maybe a stiff penalty should follow. Maybe arresting those students, maybe paying a heavy fine, maybe that will scare them away. But also parents, they should also monitor their children. I know they cannot monitor them every move. They need to put their children in check so that such issues should be avoided.
Vandalism in schools are not just dramatic headlines. They are disrupting learning, straining already limited resources, and even creating fear and uncertainty in most communities where these schools are located. When students feel unheard or neglected, the education system itself suffers, the economy suffers. What can Malawian authorities do to tackle this problem? Share your thoughts with us on Facebook at DW Africa. Listen on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to our DW Africa YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. This show was co-produced and edited by Isaac Mugabe. I am Adwoa Tenkorama Domena. Many thanks for listening.
DW, made for mind.